Man, F1 somehow managed to make this week even messier than what we're already seeing on track. Out of nowhere, stories start popping up that Bahrain and Saudi Arabia might actually drop off the calendar because of the war involving the United States and Israel, with direct impact on security and logistics in the region. This isn't just swap one race for another. We're talking massive contracts, political deals, and months of planning from the teams getting shaken up overnight. And while all that is happening in the background, F1 is trying to keep the show rolling like nothing's going on. But everybody in the paddock knows that if those GPs disappear, the whole calendar could shift. Then we switch over to China. Shanghai is back on the schedule, and it's already a big deal. First sprint race weekend of the season, just one practice session, and a super compressed format. This 2026 sprint setup is basically F1's official live test lab. Almost no track time, you've got to nail the setup fast, and any mistake hits twice as hard because the sprint already shapes how the rest of the weekend plays out. And remember, this is a track where Lewis Hamilton has won 6 times, but the context now is completely different. Mercedes is looking strong, and Ferrari is in full chasing mode with new tricks on the car. Speaking of Mercedes, they came in owning the place. George Russell basically planted his flag in Shanghai, fastest in the only practice, and then grabbed pole for the sprint, with Antonelli lining up P2 and Lando Norris in P3. The message is pretty clear. This Mercedes package is dialed in and comfortable even with minimal running. And obviously, that cranks up the pressure on Ferrari, who arrived carrying a lot of expectations, because Ferrari rolled into China with maybe the most talked about part of the week. A rear wing nicknamed the Macarena that can rotate 180 degrees and brings a pretty wild solution to balance downforce and straight line speed. Classic Ferrari move. When it works, it becomes iconic. When it doesn't, it becomes a meme. On top of that wing, they've brought other updates aimed at improving efficiency, especially on a track that mixes long corners with critical straights. Team boss Frederic Vasseur has been positive about the start to the year, but he's also admitted the upgrade list is still long. In other words, this isn't a magic bullet, it's just one more step in their chase of Mercedes. Right in the middle of all this, there's the Hamilton storyline. He's under a spotlight of expectations, criticism, and constant comparison, and Vasseur has already stepped in publicly to defend him, saying the judgment around Lewis is way too reactive. Hamilton also mentioned that an important system on his car won't be ready for another 4 or 5 races, which basically means he's running with a kind of half-finished version of what Ferrari wants the car to be for the season. So China becomes a kind of test. How far can his talent carry a still developing package surrounded by hype and pressure for instant results? Now, let's talk about Brazil's guy on the grid, Gabriel Bortoleto. His Friday in Shanghai was a lot tougher. With so little track time and a car that's still in that figuring it out phase, he ended up 12th in the lone practice and only 14th on the grid for the sprint. You can feel he's in that fine-tuning stage. It's not just about learning F1, it's about learning F1 inside a project that's also still growing. And that ties into what he's been saying about Audi. Right now, they're behind the established players in power unit experience, but the bet is clearly medium to long term. His view is that Audi can become one of the big engine manufacturers in F1, just not overnight. Meanwhile, in the background, the politics are heating up too. Russell hinted that Ferrari may have been against changes to the start procedures, suggesting that some teams are trying to protect very specific advantages while the sport debates tweaks to the rules. It's the kind of tiny technical detail that sounds small, but in practice decides who launches better when the lights go out. And then there's the Alpine situation. Flavio Briatore has been talking about Mercedes being interested in buying around 24% of the team, while saying there are another 3 or 4 potential buyers in the mix. That opens the door to a reshuffle of power off track that sooner or later shows up in performance on track. In the end, this China weekend doesn't feel like just another race. It feels like a teaser for the whole season. Mercedes looking sharp with Russell, Ferrari trying to flip the script with radical ideas like the Macarena wing, Hamilton caught in the middle of massive expectations, Bortoleto taking his first real steps in a long-term Audi project, and above all that, a calendar that might change because of a war. If you're into this bigger picture view, not just lap times but politics, tech and paddock drama all misturado, tell me, which story do you think blows up first this year? The technical side like Ferrari's wing or the political side like Bahrain and Saudi on the calendar?